evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 30th edition of Beyond the Data. Tonight we have with us attorney Warner Mendenhall, as often we do. And we also have one of his clients, Heather Mullins, who is with My Child, My Choice, which is a Facebook group, correct?
Correct.
And you are one of Warner's clients on a whole bunch of mask mandate cases that he's filed up in Northwest Ohio, which we're going to be talking about. Oh,
we've sent demand letters.
Sent demand letters. All right. See, I need you guys to keep correcting me here.
All right.
All right. And then we also have Lisa Guthrie with us, who is with Not on My Watch, and she'll be talking to us about her successes with getting masks off her children on school buses. So today is all about masks and K through 12 schools. So hopefully people find a lot of this information useful. But before we get started with all of that, I have a few advertisement type things. One, the first is also in the realm of schools. This is with Children's Health Defense, the Ohio chapter. This is going to be happening next Monday. Also, again, talking about different school-related aspects. How do you deal with our schools and some of the restrictions that COVID has been doing? Both Warner and I will be on there, along with Dr. LaFay, who has also been on this program, and several other speakers. So we're going to learn even more stuff about schools. And the final thing is, I wish I could have had Carrie on tonight, but she's working. She had a bit of a request. As many people who watch this know, she has been running something called Chip Shop for people who are disabled and need supplies, which of course the state of Ohio has not been supplying for the last 2 years. And one of the issues that she's actually come up upon is not having the ability to deliver these things to different Ohioans in need. And she told me that she had spent over $700 in shipping some of these items over the last week, and that doesn't work. So she's actually looking for volunteers who would like to do some drive-in around the state. And so if you're interested, send me a message on Facebook Messenger, or you can send a message to Carrie Benton as well on Facebook Messenger. So if you want to give back a little bit, meet some people in need, that's a possibility as well. So now I've got all the advertisement type stuff out of the way. I'd like to move on to my guests today. So I think we'll start with a little bit of the story on what you guys are doing in Northwest Ohio with schools, because I only learned about it last week at the dinner we had, that you were going after multiple different schools in multiple counties and seeing how they reacted to these demand letters. So when you guys want to let us know what has happened.
Do you mind, Lisa, if I take this one?
Well, I'm not part of this, so go for it.
Yeah, just making sure. So just to give the history of this, My Child, My Choice started back in late September in the Northwest Ohio area. Holly Roberts and I had like-mindedness, one of my friends, and we formed the group, had our first meeting, and 40 people showed up. We were shocked. And a lot of folks came in and they expected us to know what we were doing, and we did not. But what we did learn is that we wanted to take a strategic approach of it not just be one district after another district. It was essentially a holistic approach. So we knew that we didn't want to go too big in regards to the state of Ohio, but potentially let's just take a look at the school districts and even Toledo and the outskirts. And so we started to grow in numbers. We're at 650 and mounting in our Facebook group. But what we quickly learned was that there were so many inconsistencies of what was happening with the masking, the quarantining, but we all had the same heartburn with all of that. And so you fast forward as some went optional, then it all went back to mandates in regards to just the first start was masking. And that's when we stumbled upon Carlin Swopes, actually a good friend of mine in the group as well, because her husband had something going on with the railroad, reached out to Warner Mendenhall, and it was history from there. and we started to learn the law. And in the group, we realized that we had to start doing our research in regards to the ESSER funding and what was driving these key decisions that were happening within the district, what needed to be true in order for this to be happening. And so when we realized that there was no real consistency, again, Warner always says, follow the money. We really dug deep to figure out what is driving this in order for this to be these severe mandates and where exemptions are being denied and all of those things. So fast forward, we then at that point knew that after we did the research, exemptions were denied, that we needed to stand up and go after these districts, because at the end of the day, the school boards were not responding. We knew these superintendents had the full reign on what was going to happen. And it went back and forth between, for example, oh, well, we have to follow what the health department says. The health department would say, this is just recommendation. And round we would go. And when we would go to these school board meetings within this group, we learned, I went to 10 different districts in Lucas County and in Wood, and I would sit there and listen. And it was almost a verbatim that would happen as a response from the president of the school board saying, and the superintendent, well, our hands are tied. And I'm like, what is tying your hands? What do you mean your hands are tied to not have an option? And no one would be able to answer it effectively. Then they would refer to their lawyer, and then we would go to the health department, and round we would go. So we decided to stand up and take this, in our own hands and really hold them accountable.
Awesome. I mean, I had the same experience. It was probably about a year and a half ago. I was on, I don't know how many dozens of calls with different all across the state, different school boards and superintendents, and the same thing. And it was exactly that. It was verbatim, that whole business of, oh, well, we can't because the school board or the health department. And I talked to the health departments too, and they were like, no, it's not us. And it is. It's like, they are definitely having something back there that is definitely informing them. So that was great background there. And so, Warner, do you want to tell us what your approach was to doing all of these demand letters, and what result have you gotten?
I'm not even sure I'm up to date on all the results, so maybe Heather can help me out on that. But we did issue demand letters and asked for responses by the end of last week. We're basically saying, look, you don't have the authority to do this. It's contrary to Ohio law. The masks don't work anyway. And I think any parent knows how ridiculous it is. They pick their kids up, and those masks are filthy at the end of the day. They're not doing anybody any good. I've had parents as well put oxygen meters on their kids just to test what the impact is, and they've seen low oxygenation rates with the kids. So it's really, it's incredible what the parents have done to investigate the harm that the masks, are causing. And I think everybody has stumbled into these ESSER funds. And the reason we're getting blank stares from the board members, they feel like they are locked in. I think they're getting bad legal advice because there is a way around this. It's not, the wording in the federal, in the federal requirements for these funds, are they have to do everything practicable to implement the guidance of the CDC. Well, I can tell you it's not practicable to violate Ohio law or to violate people's civil rights. So that's basically where I come down on that.
And what I will say with this is that we have, just so that way it threads Lisa into this as well, God is great. I do know that. The connections in which we are making are incredible. And the empowerment that the groups are building is simply this, is that once you start waking the mama bear and the mama dads, right, or the dads as well, but let's be real, we're fighting pretty hard for all of this. We start talking, and we start seeing that this is becoming more of a global issue. And so when most of us, we wanted to be strategic because we knew that everyone was essentially in the same boat, minus Anthony Wayne in the area. So I'm based out of the Toledo, Ohio area, and Lisa's more from Findlay. But we have a lot of counties that are very close to one another. And therefore, we wanted to make sure that we took a look at, okay, what is a big district in Lucas County going to do? What would a smaller one do? And we went into Wood County and Hancock County because we knew that we were close enough within an hour span. But what was it going to look like when you're on the border of two health departments in two counties? We wanted to see how they were going to respond. And it's very, very interesting, the inconsistency. So that's why we approached Warner that, listen, we want to take a look at what Springfield out of Holland, Ohio would do, what Penta, it's a community college that has about 16 districts rolled up into one, Findlay, Perrysburg, Maumee, what would they do? And I want to utilize this time just for a moment to say they don't take us seriously. Okay. A middle schooler was overheard just on Friday at Springfield, the staff saying, oh, this stupid lawsuit, we're not even going to respond. So they don't think that this is a logical thing that we're going to be able to pursue. And what I want to stress is that there are 3 contingencies in this letter. It is not just about masking. It's not just about masking. That's the initial. It'd be one thing that, and I want to be clear as well. We are not saying that we are anti-mask, anti-vax. We are pro-choice. That's it. So whatever an individual needs to be true in order for them to make that decision, absolutely. We're not trying to negotiate that or have a conversation around that. It is that I know for my situation with my twin daughters, with the asthma and allergy history, the dermatologist breakouts they had, the peakedness, the headaches. When we're on the news, for example, in Toledo, Ohio, we had a report done, and it was great. They tried to be bipartisan, I do believe. But at the end of the day, they focused so much on the masking that they didn't focus on the why we wanted the option. And so I had to pull my daughters out of Springfield local school district. And this was at winter break. I pulled the trigger very quickly. It's a lot of money. It was not ideal. But they are now at a private school, Notre Dame Academy. Amazing. Their responses are love thy neighbor, wash your hands, and we encourage you to wear the mask. But if not, love thy neighbor, right? And they're made whole. They're going to school every single day. So that is why we're continuing to pursue this, because this is doing so much damage to these students. And in 3 weeks' time, my daughters have come to life. They have color back in their face. Their grades are going up. They're happy. They're smiling. They're staying out of their room. And so it's not just about the mask. It also extends into the second layer of the extensive quarantining. So they want to say that we're following the CDC. We're following the Ohio Department of Health. We're following the county. No, you're not, because they're overreaching and adding days up to the tunes of 15 days. If a healthy kid, unvaccinated, is exposed, they're up 15 days.
So are they just discriminating against vaccinated versus unvaccinated?
It appears that way. Yes, because if you are vaccinated, you can come back immediately with a mask. If you are unvaccinated, say that, Lisa, you and I, we're in the same household, for example, and you test positive and you're doing the right thing and you're reporting it. I advise you not to, but
I don't think that's doing the right thing.
What are we reporting? Are they gonna treat you? No. But at the end of the day, so you're my mom, I'm the student. You test positive for COVID. You report it because you're a good human. Then they say, me as a student, unvaccinated, has to, and this is in Springfield School District, you have to quarantine with mom for 10 days and you're out an additional 5. And you're healthy. You're not even negative. They don't even test. You're not even tested positive. And you're out that long. This can be up to, in addition, an additional 5. So a student that is unvaccinated could be out 20 days.
So was it House Bill 248 that eliminated
22.
It was, it
Was
was
it
244. No. House Bill 244 was the one that said you cannot discriminate based upon vaccination status, and
Right.
SB 22 is the one that has effectively tied the hands of Governor DeWine and ODH and the local health departments.
Mhm.
So the reason we do not have a state mask mandate in effect right now, and all these other, the shutting down of businesses and all that kind of stuff, is because of SB 22, while HB 244 is the one that had the for public schools and universities, you cannot discriminate between the two. I've been down to the state house a few times on this one.
They just don't know this, Heather.
Yeah.
But,
Pardon me?
House Bill was HB 244 became effect. Remind me, when was
In
it?
October.
Yes, it was slipped in on a completely unrelated bill. Just right there on that night, within a couple hours of it appearing as an amendment.
So you bring up a great point, Heather, and I think that this has become apparent to me throughout this journey as well, is that people don't know. They truly, administrators, school board members, teachers, principals, other parents, everyone, they either don't know, they don't know their rights, their human rights, their God-given rights, their parental rights, or they just don't know the laws and don't know what they have to stand on. I think truly and genuinely, a lot of people do not.
The average citizen does not know, because when you throw hours upon hours into this and you obsess about it and don't sleep at night, you find it.
Yes.
But you know what that's like, Catherine?
I feel
listen, the superintendents know, the board members should know. And the reality is that the board is elected by the people. The board, then the superintendent reports to the board. And somewhere along the line, we have flip-flopped that power.
Yes.
And then we as parents, as taxpayers, come in and they can tell you when I'm begging the board and they stare at you and they want to say, well, are you going to vaccinate your daughters? Well, one, how dare you ask me that publicly in a live stream at a board meeting?
They did that?
Oh, yeah. I have the video. And the board president stated that we were murdering people. We will put people in coffins if we don't mask. Stated that live.
Awful.
That is a great opinion.
Psychological war.
They all just sat there. They all just sat there, and I asked, I want to know where all of you stand as elected, representation of this community. And Mr. Giha, the superintendent, said, Heather, they don't have to state that publicly. So you're able to tell me I can't do certain things based on my options and my God-given rights and the Constitution, but you don't have to tell me where your group stands on this. That's wrong.
Well, and with the Nuremberg Code, I mean, there's been so many things I've learned, and I'm no attorney, Warner, but with the Nuremberg Code, they can't push the vaccine. That is against the Nuremberg Code. And I think that there's so much to be learned. And I found great opportunity, honestly, in all of this evil is learning this and experiencing this with my children as well, and empowering them with, we've been down this road before and this battle has been won. And it's our time to remind people of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, considering that when you here's the reality. I truly believe anyone that is doing the masking and is vaccinated, they really believe they're doing the right thing.
And
I commend you. In your heart, you believe it, and that's great. What I do disagree with is the imposing of those said be opinions and beliefs on another human being.
Absolutely.
And the concern that I have is that when you have an entire, majority of a board or superintendent that, for example, in Springfield, they really get these 5 through 12 vaccinated. And we held these clinics on site.
Really?
And they also stated, if you get vaxxed, you get put into a raffle for a scholarship. So if I didn't want to vaccinate my daughters within that school district, you mean to tell me they don't qualify for a scholarship? Got it. And that's what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think what they're minimizing the entirety of this is when you get a group of folks. Listen, the only thing that I can think is it ego? Is it power? I don't know at this point when you do such an overreach, but it's gotten to the point where it's like, do as I say. This is my opinion. And, you know, thank God for the whistleblowers inside of districts. I will never say a name because that's not my story to tell. But I would like to give a fair warning to these districts that there are people within your building and on your payroll that are reaching out, begging for help because they're scared to speak up. Now, picture this. Say that you work for a school district. Let's say that it's Springfield Local School Districts. And you work there on payroll. And you are out of sick time. And you then do the right thing, saying that someone in your household was exposed, they have COVID. And you work there and you're not fully vaccinated. And they tell you that you have to be out 15 days and cannot come back to work. And then when the said be person is out 15 days and they're not sick and they're out of sick time, they are now docking their pay weekly of the days they did not have left because they wouldn't allow them to go to work.
Yeah, that is one thing that they have been implementing across a lot of different industries as well. Is this business of the personal time, and I mean, it's I think that's their way around. You know, you can't force a medical treatment. Well, you can. Well, what's coercion? How do we define it? And all that kind of stuff. Where's that line? And it kind of goes along with one of the questions I see over in the comments there about how is it possible we're still discriminating between vaxxed and unvaxxed if 244 is in effect. And basically, I think it's fair to say that they're just breaking the law. They just don't care. That's what they're doing at this time. They just break the law every which way they can. And unless somebody like Warner sues them, they're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, I almost don't even need to talk this time, Catherine. You guys are doing just fine.
Oh, no. Is it okay? I'm sorry. I'm a talker. It literally has consumed.
No. I love it. I love it. Now, you've hit so many good points. Let me clarify something about Nuremberg. I mean, Nuremberg were principles, okay? And we tried the Nazis on the Nuremberg principles. But it has been codified in the Helsinki and Geneva Declaration. And then it was also brought into our Code of Federal Regulations. So it's been blended into our Code of Federal Regulations, this idea of consent and that you cannot experiment on people without their consent. And all of this is experimental. The masks are experimental. You know, the shot is experimental. So, you know, we are clearly violating those principles, violating the agreements at Helsinki and Geneva, and violating our FDA regulations. The other point that is interesting and comes up, I think, almost every time we talk, Catherine, is, you know, this idea of whistleblowers. I mean, whistleblowers are critical. Every single entity that we have sued or interacted with in any way almost has had whistleblowers that come from pretty high up in the management or ownership level of these companies. And so we have very high level people, you know, that are cheering us on essentially in terms of doing this work. And you know, and because of that, you know, we are receiving information sometimes through third parties about what's going on within all the government bodies, within the corporate bodies, you know. So that's really fascinating. I mean, I think this is really waking us all up to the need for whistleblowers. And I'll tell you, Ohio does not have good whistleblower protection in our state law. So I would like to, that is something we need to kind of, you know, set aside and work on at some point to make sure our legislatures make sure if somebody's fired for telling truthful information about government or corporations, that they get their back pay, front pay, and attorney fees paid if they have to sue over it. So that's definitely on the to-do list for our state legislature. The other thing is this Senate Bill 22 and the role of the health departments That is where with these schools, we see them going way beyond their authority. First of all, the health department has very strict limits on its authority. It can only quarantine somebody who is either ill or has direct contact with someone who's ill. I have yet to see a letter from a school district that says your child had direct contact with this other child and therefore we're quarantining them. What I see is they've had close contact, they've been around somebody, they've been exposed, but never are they using the word direct contact. And it's not even the school's place to tell you whether they had direct contact. The health department has to investigate and determine that there's direct contact and issue an order that's signed by the health director. None of that is happening.
So did you address that in some of those demand letters over the last?
Yes.
So when did you send that?
About a week ago. Just we gave them 7 days, so we sent them. I think at the end of what did we send those?
So the last one that you sent was last Saturday. So by tomorrow, close of business, all 4 should have appropriately responded.
And Heather, there have been some changes actually, even since we sent the letters. Correct.
Correct. So I do believe that at least that Perrysburg will be removing the masking February 7th, and Springfield is stating February 18th. When we ran the local news story, they focused heavily on just the masking, right? Mm-hmm. And what I love about this, or I find incredibly intriguing, is that they can look into a crystal ball and say, February 18th, the end of our trimester, we're gonna go optional. So I question, why are you forecasting a date? Is there payout? Is there money? I don't know. I would love for anybody to answer that. But what would need to be true for it to just be ceased immediately? And it's almost like they want to make it look like it was on their own terms. But my concern is this. So we're starting to see them cave in regards to masking and letting it be optional. The Ohio Department of Health has stated there's no more of that contact tracing. But when you get from the districts these very wordy letters of what it means for mass contact tracing, and it needs to be in clusters, it's a lot of words that mean nothing. The schools are responding saying that they can, as a public entity, that they can determine the rules. But then they want to say they're following the guidelines. Mm-hmm. So what is it? We are the taxpayers. Why is it your rules? So this is just continued to snowball. And this is a great question for Warner, is that, okay, so they cease it now. The legislation has got to get put into place. So this is no longer an issue come 8 months from now.
Exactly, Heather. It leaves a lot of open room for them to re-implement.
Well, let me be clear. I mean, I think the law is already clear. I think they're violating our laws right now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we do want these cases to proceed so that, we have some rulings to clarify that issue. But as far as I'm concerned, they're in violation of the laws that we have. We don't particularly need new laws on these kind of issues right now.
Absolutely. And like mask day, test to play, that's not legal.
No.
So
unlawful and unenforceable.
This is the reason I kind of asked the question about what the timing of it was, is because of the lifting of the mandates by Vanderhoff this week as well. I mean, it is going all over the world that they're starting to lift all of these contact tracing situations. Where is it a situation where they're, as they have done repeatedly throughout this insanity, is once they know they can get caught, and exactly what Warner was just saying there, where once we have it go through, then it gets codified and we have rulings and stuff. And is this part of a situation of they're just trying to, never mind and try to escape it that way.
I mean, it's always a basket of things, right? I would never take credit for my letters or anything on their own, because, if
the whole world changed because of you.
Yeah, right. If we didn't have the parents standing up, and I mean, even the kids standing up. I was talking to a mom of a 12-year-old boy who was marching into school without his mask every day and facing people down. The young man at University of Cincinnati, I mean, I just love he's been doing down there, our client, and he has really gone after them through the public records, and he's challenging his professors daily, on the mask issue. So, I'm just all the parents, all the kids, and all the lawyers that are standing up now and trying to help out. I mean, it's always a basket of issues. So it's always a basket of pressures. Just like you fight COVID, I say this over and over, you can't fight it with just one drug or one method. You've got to hit it with everything you've got. So we're hitting it with media, law, protest, everything that we can do. And that's what brings the change. And I think we do get to a tipping point, which, I mean, I think all of us are seeing that happening this week, is there is a bit of a change that's taking place. And look at the Canadian truckers, God bless them.
Yes.
I mean, if you haven't seen that, I mean, 50,000 trucks, surrounding the Parliament in Canada. I love it. Mm-hmm. So there's, clearly we're done. We're not going to take it anymore as a people. Mm-hmm. But we need to, and we are acting like the antibodies to this disease or this virus of fear. And we need to stay active, and we need to, everything we've learned, we need to keep that at hand and on top of our mind, so to speak, so that we're ready to go when we see them if they think we're letting down our guard, boom, we're not. We're going to come right back at you much faster next time. It will not take me very long to connect up with the thousands of people, who we've connected. It took 2 years to build the connections. I mean, but those connections will not go away. They're not going away. People know where to turn. They know what to do. It's going to be much faster reaction next time.
Well, and I love different platforms we have to go to and how you connect in different ways because, well, they've taught us we have to do that.
Yeah. And as you know, Catherine, I've built my own platform here. We have our own media center. So
what I will say is, speaking of connections, that is a good segue. Lisa reached out to me, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Yeah, Lisa, that'd be great for you to talk about the buses. And that has been an issue. I mean, I've been hearing, for some reason, all of a sudden, a lot of bus issues people have been asking me a lot about buses. So go ahead and tell your story.
Wait, before we get there, let's end here, all right? Because I do see some questions over there, and I get these questions directly a lot, which is kind of coming from this in terms of you've taken on several of these mask mandate cases, right, Warner? And so what you had said to me before is you're also testing out what works and what doesn't, what kind of responses you get and all that. And so I have a lot of people who are interested in how do they get you to help. So kind of the question would be, what are your next steps with going after these mask mandates, and is it best for parent groups to hold off on if things work or don't work? Or I mean, obviously everybody should gather together if they're thinking about it. And
well,
may I chime in just really quickly, just so that way, and Warner probably knows this, but here's the deal. He's going to be able to test it with Maumee, Perrysburg, and Springfield because we are moving forward. They can't just do one thing and dismiss us. So I guess from where I stand, might want to get a temperature of what we do. So the more that he can learn, but we're not backing down. The way that they dismissed us, that's good.
And I mean, and Mitch, who's been on, I was actually on the phone with Mitch this afternoon, but we do have a group of lawyers that, we're coordinating this. So whatever part of the state you're in, I mean, it may not be something that I personally can do, but we've got a qualified attorney who can take that case on. And I'll tell you really frankly, I mean, we're going to be sharing, the pleadings and the research and the motions and the responses to motions. So the lawyers are going to have everything that we've got. And we're going to coordinate with them. I talked to Mitch today about a case that I'd like him maybe to step in and take lead on. I may still sign on to the case, but I may have Mitch do the majority of work on that, at least in terms of getting the thing started and rolling. I certainly want to be there. I mean, all of these cases are going to end up on appeal. And I want to be a part of those appeals for sure, either behind the scenes with the lawyer or even doing the appeal myself, because we know the school boards are going to appeal them. And if we lose a case, we're going to appeal it. So.
And that is the one thing that I can say, and I'm sorry if I'm hijacking this, I get so passionate because I know what it feels like to be completely alone in this. So a lot of the viewers that are, oh, what do we do? We're ready to make the move. What I will tell you is continue to surround yourself around like-minded folks. You're not alone. You're not crazy. And the beauty of it is that when you get the word out, Lisa, for example, reached out and said, oh my gosh, we out of Finley, we need to do something. What do we do? And I simply said, I'm not really sure, but here's what we've learned. You've got this. And if you're sitting on the other side of the screen thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like a Lone Ranger, we welcome you with open arms. You're not.
No.
And no one should ever shame you for putting your kids first in what you feel is best. When have we ever shamed someone for being the minority, right? It's all this talk about like, well, all walks of life, no matter what you're about, you're not alone and you're really not the minority. And just have confidence that we're doing this, and Warner is amazing. And if he can't do it for you, I literally trust him with everything. I mean that. Our conversations are fantastic. So oftentimes lawyers are not trusted very much, and duly noted. But this guy right here, dude, let's be real, right? You, if you're getting one, you probably did something wrong. We didn't do anything wrong. And you have a man that is putting countless hours in. And tell your wife we love her.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah, thank God she's good with all this. She's on board. So that could have been a problem. But no, I mean, these are massive civil rights violations, massive. And I mean, something that I actually saw some of this coming up in the thing about the bonding and stuff. They need to be put on notice. They are committing massive civil rights violations, and we know it. Some of the lawsuits, our lawsuits are targeting mainly Ohio law because we see that as a very clear pathway. But in a longer term sense, the statute of limitations on the civil rights violations is longer. It's a 2-year statute of limitation. And, some of those cases could be brought as well. But for right now, we're just trying to get it stopped. I've explained before, we are kind of triaging the legal theories. There's probably 10 or 12 different things that they could be sued over right now. But in terms of our strategy, we want to hit the cleanest, quickest way to do it. But civil rights violations, that's what's happened. So people who are talking about the surety bonds, let me talk about that just for a minute, because that's come up quite a bit. And I don't know if you went into that, Lisa, and I don't want to.
No.
I want you to tell your story on the buses too. Let's not forget that.
I'm being patient.
Okay. But what basically a surety bond is for our public officials when they are handling money, so that they're responsible with money. That's the basic reason for the surety bond. So you can make a public records request, get the surety bond, read what it says. I mean, they also can't go willy-nilly violating civil rights either. So you could tell the bonding companies that these people have violated your children's civil rights and your rights as parents, which are civil rights as well, and put them on notice that they are in violation of federal law. They need to know that. They need to know you're paying attention. And we talked, Heather, to follow the money. I mean, track your treasurer's reports, see where they're spending the money. It's not just the ESSER funds. Look at the rest of the funds at this point. Start figuring out these budgets and what they're doing, because I know they did that in Madison, Ohio, and have had a kind of a phenomenal result up in Madison, Ohio, investigating what the school board was doing. I know in Stowe, Ohio, a few years ago, I represented a school board member who they would not give him the financial data. So he had to sue over that. He happened to be an accountant, and he found $5 million or so that was being, $5 million in the budget that, they hadn't accounted for. So, I mean, there's just a lot of craziness going on. Sometimes these treasurers and these school districts aren't at all qualified to do the job that they're doing. So just keep digging. These are things we need to do to be responsible citizens anyway.
So there was one question in the comments about, what should they do? Who should they call first? And I think I can answer that question. And it really is, you call the people around you first. You get together with the people in your school district first, or as Heather has done, some in neighboring school districts and that kind of thing. I think that's really the answer before you start heading to someone like Warner or any of the other lawyers getting involved here. Is first get your local school districts parents together.
Now, what I will say, Catherine, is that can be really scary and deflating, because here's the reality, and I can feel this person already on the other end, because they likely have a handful of people who are the loud ones. I'm the loud one, no one is surprised, but you have folks that say, listen, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. They're scared. They don't want their kids to be disrupted. My girls, I've rolled the dice, and I'm teaching them some strength in with this as well, because I can only imagine what is being said by me standing up. And so no parent wants to put their kid in the middle of that fight, right? Even though you know that it is right. So don't have some grace with the folks out there that say, I agree with you, but I don't know what to do. You may have to be the Lone Ranger in that group, and you have to have the voice. You might have to. The second thing is document. The Sunshine Law can give you all of the data that is public. If you have a question about how your school board and your superintendent is communicating to the teachers union, for example, any email in that domain, you got them. You can ask for it. You can ask for the funding. You can ask their conversations through the superintendent directly to the health department. Anything that happens, it's one thing to say, oh, so Warner, I have this story. This is what happened. If you don't have a paper trail, it doesn't mean much, right? It's a he said, she said. So what I would encourage everyone is file your exemption, get the denial, have the paper trail, right? Get everything documented in email, and as much data that you can give to him. That is going to be more viable of a pursuit for your win, or at least to give him something, because here in Northwest Ohio, that poor man is getting peppered with data. We're like capturing it, send, but that's the reality. You got to be Miss Molly Notebook on this one, and make sure that if you're going to do this, have this documented real time. That way this makes sense. Does that make sense, or did I overtalk that?
No, it makes sense. It's good.
It makes sense. I think is it okay if I
Yes, it's a good time. And also to go into your story as well. Definitely.
Yeah. So with that being said, Heather, I will segue in. I feel like I'm jumping in the middle, but I'd like to, if I could, start from our beginning. I think like most parents, we just kind of went along with it and did what we had to do to get through last school year. Just through talk. I mean, we knew it was wrong from the beginning, and just internally knew. In August, when school was ramping back up again, and we had been without a mask all summer, and living our life right again. Finally, there was talk about masks being implemented again in school. Fortunately, our school board voted unanimously to keep masks at parent choice. I will say that it was heated. We attended several school board meetings. A lot of parents spoke who wouldn't speak otherwise. Our school board meetings, as others in the country, were well attended and moved to different rooms in the building to accommodate the over 100 or however many people there were. And I heard so many parents saying the same things in different pockets of my life. I'll say I'm a third generation Findlay City School parent, and our roots run deep here. And we love our schools. We love our teachers. We have made great friendships. Our kids have had great coaches and teachers. We have a lot of roots and history here. And it's not easy for me to be the loud one, Heather. It's not. This is not my strength at all. However, I do have strong convictions, and I know when I know something's wrong. And it just sort of started with my own need to learn the truth and know what my rights are. So I spoke with a different attorney late this summer, and just in desperation one day, someone threw his name out to me and said, "Hey, has anyone talked to this guy?" And no one had. And it's like, I told Warner this the other day. I said, "Do you guys ever feel like we're in an escape room and we're gathering clues and we're, unlocking the treasure chest one at a time? And we've been in this escape room for 2 years. And sometimes I just want to hit the panic button and like, okay, game's over. Tell us the story." It's building connections has been key. To back up a minute, wanted to bring all these parents together in our school district, and didn't know the best route to do it. There's not one common thing that unites us other than our schools and our children. And I don't know all of these people, but I had to look back because Heather, when you started your Facebook page, but ours was started in August. Just a place of like-minded people to come to. I think, like you said, rallying the troops, rallying the people who are like-minded is powerful. There is so much strength in numbers, even just to support each other through this, to empower our children to walk this walk. Like you said, I have felt so many times like I'm throwing my kids into the lion's den, sending them to school. Fortunately, they're older. I can't imagine if they were in elementary school. They are, we would have pulled them by now, but empowering them with their rights and practicing what they, and essentially it comes down to us as parents. They are walking the walk and fighting the fight in the fire. But they know that they have seen the fruits of our labor, and they have seen things play out to know that when you stand on your fundamental God-given rights, that's really difficult to argue with, but always putting it back on us. If anyone says anything to you, this is an adult situation. So if anyone has a problem with anything, call us, tell them to call us. And just take it out of their hands completely. Yes, they're walking the walk, but ultimately it's an adult situation. Fortunately, the teachers, administrators have been very supportive for my children and us. But I think that's only because we have armed ourselves with learning our rights. Our generation, we have not had a war. We haven't had to fight for anything. All of these rights and that our grandparents and our forefathers fought for us, it was just assumed. And that was one thing that was made very clear to me when I called this attorney back in August. He essentially said, "You don't need me. You have all you need already." And I'm like, "No, I want you to take this baton and just take care of this, right?" And he was very repeatedly over and over and over through the months saying, our rights come from God, number one. We have parental rights. We have civil rights, like Warner said. Not only that, we have established law. And just to like dig into what all that means, I bought myself a handy dandy little constitution, and my husband and I will dig it. I mean, we haven't done it in a little while, but just sorting through, like learning the Bill of Rights, right? What does that say? I think that's a great starting point, in addition to rallying the troops, is understanding the basis of our country. And we are all equipped with everything we need. Another interesting point I'd like to make, and kind of a key point in my journey, is I came across this civil rights attorney in New York. Her name is Patricia Lindsay, and she is a rock star. She's my new hero, but she speaks of the doctrine of the lesser magistrates. And Warner, you can maybe educate us on a little more of that. But I just find that so powerful, that we, the people, the rights are with us. And the government's job, our leaders' job in civil society, as a constitutional republic that we are, their job is to protect our rights. And it's our job to invoke our rights, know our rights, and live them. And the doctrine of the lesser magistrates has just been really key to me, fighting these fights for our freedoms, essentially.
I do want to say one thing in here, and this actually came up on recent Beyond the Data as well, where when you're talking about, we have to educate ourselves on what our rights and all of that, and what the laws are and all of that. Mm-hmm. I think it's incredibly critical to remember when you feel like you're not up to the task, you feel like you're not up to the task, and just keep in mind that the school board members and the other officials probably know less than you do. Yes. And they are just simply being fed whatever they're being fed from some lawyer behind them. So they don't understand what they're talking about to you. And if you come in with that ability to I mean, you hopefully we'll get to it, but you've put together a great little handout thing with links to very specific laws and regulations and all that, where you can point to it. You can say this is what it actually says, and I think that is a very powerful thing to keep in mind. No, you can't easily know more than they do, and just keep it there with direct links and facts and all that.
Absolutely, and I think along with that, it has become such an emotionally charged topic. It's political. It's all over the place, and I don't do well sorting through all of that. So I needed to boil it all down for myself. Like, in law, we have the law for that very reason. It removes all emotion. So just, I mean, this has not come overnight. This has been months in the making, right? And I still have only scratched the surface. And I am no lawyer, Warner. I'm not claiming to be that at all. But as an American citizen, though, don't discount that for ourselves, right? That we are the lesser magistrates, and it is our duty and obligation to, as this Trisha Lindsay, the civil rights attorney, says, to teach one. What does she say? Each one, teach one, and reach one. And for all of us to just know that, and even if you just take a little nugget and learn something new every single day, to each one, teach one, and reach one, I think is extremely powerful.
Basically what we're trying to do all this time. I mean, it's the way to go.
I'm not dismissing on the same point that there's not a time and a place for an attorney. I'm not saying that at all.
We do need you here, Warner. Please don't go away.
We sure do. But there's so much that we can do. We have to do the legwork.
No, I've often thought about that, and that's kind of, I think, partly what we're doing here is, in part, it's essentially a civics lesson. Mm-hmm. You know, it's real simple, and we no longer know civically, you know, that we can get public records. We no longer understand sometimes the charters and the Ohio Constitution and the U.S. Constitution, how they're functioning. And I mean, lawyers are critical. I mean, that's been really apparent here in some ways, but we haven't had the lawyers. I mean, I'm just one guy, and I mean, I can tell you, there's thousands of people who need lawyers right now, and I can't. I mean, I've got I've got five lawyers here, but that's still it's just an overwhelming situation. But this idea that I think you're getting to, Lisa, and I see all the time, when you or Heather, stand up, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And if nobody stands up, they're just going to roll over us. So just standing up in whatever capacity, and I think that's what I always say to people too, is just do what you can.
Right.
Do what you can. I mean, I wish I could do more. I wish I knew more. I wish I were smarter. I wish I were more brilliant in the law. I mean, whatever, I don't have all the tools that I want to have, but I know that I've got to do something. So, and you guys know you've got to do something. So my brother has a saying. He said to me, one day I was just exhausted. I was like, I wish I'd have done this or that. He said, well, did you do all you could? I said, yeah. He said, well, then that's all you can do. So if you've done all you can, that's all you can do. But make sure you've done all you can if it's that important. And I do agree. I mean, in some ways we are in this war. I mean, it certainly is a war on our children. And I'm a little more, with the kids getting vaxxed. I hate to say this, Lisa, but I mean, I do not want a single child to get vaxxed with this crap. I mean, I think it's very dangerous. I mean, I don't think there's any scientific basis for a child to get vaxxed. I mean, I could see some arguments if you're older and if whatever, but not for children. I don't see it. It's like playing Russian roulette with your child. And I mean, I wouldn't do that. I'm surprised, that some people have made that decision. I really, that's how dangerous I think it is. Maybe I'm being a little bit overwrought here, but I really, the more I see, the worse it gets. But Lisa, I do have to get off at 8:30 or before 8:30, Catherine. I mean, after this, I actually have a call with, we're going to be talking to some of the Catholic schools and the Catholic parents. So we're going to move on. That's not on Facebook, obviously, but we are going to be talking to some of the Catholic schools in terms of what they can do. And they're similarly driven, I think, by money. I mean, they've received money as well from CARES Act funds. So I think it's all part and parcel. But Lisa, your bus story, I think there are people that want to hear the story.
Okay. So in the fall, when we were going back to school, and we all heard about this bus mask mandate, because masks were required on buses, even though masks were not mandatory at our school. That was voted on loud and clear. It was parent choice, but our children still had to wear masks on the school bus because it's considered public transportation. And that just did not sit well with me. And this is not public transportation. I can't stand on the corner and get on my kid's bus with her in the morning, right? Like, this is not public transportation. But I, again, needed to remove the emotion from it and get down to the law, right? What does the law say about this? And we were provided by the school the CDC regulations, and read through those, and I mean, it's easy to buy into all of that. But another thing that this attorney told me when I spoke to him in the fall, in August, was the CDC is a non-regulatory agency. And he gave me so many nuggets, and so I dug into them. Like, well, what does that mean? Well, essentially, the CDC does not make law. The CDC, as we've all read, they have guidelines, and the president can issue orders, but the CDC guidelines do not supersede established law. So my sister and I were just in this heavy one weekend, and all day one Sunday, we sat out on my patio and dug into the Ohio Revised Code and US Code. And we have zero legal background at all. We're just moms who care. Leave our kids alone, essentially. So we found, and then another friend of mine, a good friend, she and I have been working closely in all of this too. And she's the organized one of all of us. My sister is too. But Kim, our friend, she gathered all these nuggets that we found and put them in a document. And I shared that with Catherine.
You want me to pull it up?
It's real clear. Well, I might be jumping ahead a little too much. You can if you'd like. But essentially, it goes through why the bus mandate is not law. It's not legal. And bus drivers don't have to be wearing masks. Your children don't have to be wearing masks. And it's all specifically in Ohio law, the Ohio Revised Code. It specifically says public transportation does not include school buses. It's also in the U.S. Code because we thought, well, if it's in the federal law, maybe that overrules what's in the state law. And sure enough, no, it is clear as day in the U.S. Code as well. And that one took a long time to find. My sister was on that. I don't have patience for that. But she found the U.S. Code. And of course, like this took us all day, where someone might more familiar with all of this may have not taken quite so long, but we found it. And the U.S. Code also specifically states that school buses are not public transportation. It specifically says that. And it was like,
it's pretty clear there.
Yes, it's very clear. This one I know is very minor in the big scheme of a lot of the other battles we're fighting right now, and people losing their jobs over
computers,
getting the vaccine, and lots of other bigger issues. But this one is also important and kind of goes along with all of what we're all trying to do, right? Is stand up for our rights and our children and straightening all of this tangled up web. So right there, this is the Ohio Revised Code.
Yeah.
And Catherine has highlighted, this is, what section? 5501.01B. Right there, it goes on to describe public transportation, what it means. The last sentence is our golden ticket winner right there. Public transportation does not include school bus transportation or charter or sightseeing services. You all can look this up. Don't take my word for it.
Kind of clear.
And then the U.S. Code, Title 49. This one, like I said, you really have to look for this one.
Oh, yeah, this was a pain.
Yeah, it sure was a pain. I mean, this took hours to find. Public transportation means transportation by a conveyance that provides regular and continuing general or special transportation to the public, but does not include school bus.
I want to jump in. I want to jump in here real quick on the CDC. I mean, remember they did something earlier this year with the rentals. With rental units that was stricken by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is the same kind of thing. I mean, it's very simple agency overreach. And I think that, school buses are not part of the interstate transportation system. They're just taking kids from their houses to the school. So this is not something that in any way could come under. They do have limited regulatory authority. I mean, they have some. But it's not going to cover this.
Well, and that's the thing that when I was going through these links with Lisa earlier, and I was going through this one here with the requirement for a face mask. This is from the CDC's, and it says the CDC issued an order. They can't issue orders. They cannot. It's not legal for them to do so. And I know Carrie has been harping on this one for a year now. That somebody should check the signature on it, because that's exactly, and it links to this order, but the CDC cannot give orders. So how is this even in place still? I mean,
let's be a little bit more careful. They can get into some federal rulemaking, but this one in particular, but they're supposed to be very tightly constrained in terms of what they can, what they can make rules on. And this is way out of bounds.
Well, it's a non-regulatory agency. What things can they make rules on? As far as I understood, the CDC is only able to do.
One of the things I don't know everything. I'd have to, I would have to go and look, but I'm pretty sure that they are able to make some regulations. It's just, the agencies are constrained. They are set up by Congress. Okay. They have a limited ability to operate, and they have to stay within those limits. I mean, that's really the key point. Every agency has its limits. So the CDC has its limits. The Department of Transportation has its limits. Every agency has its limits. So just look at what the initial legislation that created them did. That constrains what they can do. But regulating landlords and tenants is way out of bounds. Regulating school buses is way out of bounds for the CDC. That is not what they're set up to do. So that's all I'm saying. When you're looking at agencies, just think back. How were they founded? What did the original legislation say? What were the limits that were set? And then once you know that, is this beyond their limits? All I'm saying today, the buses and the masking by the CDC are way outside of bounds, just like the landlord-tenant one was way out of bounds. I don't want to get into all the, boy, do they have some things they can do? Yes, but it's not, there's a limit. That's all I want you guys to think of. There's a limit to it, and this is beyond the limit. That I have checked out. That I will confirm. I want to be a little careful on this.
Well, in knowing that I am not an attorney by any means, I asked the school board and our superintendent for clarification, gave them this information that we found, hoping that, like I said earlier on, we discovered that people just don't know. They're not going to take the time. They're just following orders. And so I reached out and asked them, this is what we found. Is this true? How can you help me understand this? And we got a letter back from the school saying that Ohio law does define the term public transportation. I don't want you guys to think that this is easy. It's not, it is a slam dunk, but you're going to have to put in the work and be persistent and know your rights, know the law, and not let them twist your words. You've got to know what you're standing on is valid, and you ultimately are the parent, and you decide if your child wears a mask or not. But it says the CDC order does say passengers wear masks on all conveyances, which conveyances is defined in federal law to include all road vehicles. They have their justification for being able to enforce this, but like we've talked about before, this all goes back to the money. And in order to get these ESSER funds, they have to be participating, and we don't even know what, but and you've given them an out, Warner, too. And I did find that language in the ESSER fund. I did not personally, a friend of mine did. I'll clarify that, where it says that they will play by the rules of this game when it's practicable.
Right.
As long as it's practical. And when it's not in line with state law and federal law, right, I would say that's not practicable.
Right.
But the school board, our school would never, our superintendent would never admit defeat, never admit.
Unfortunately, I know what's happening on the other side. The attorneys on the other side who are representing these school boards who they have hired, all they do is they look at the federal language and they say, you got to do this. They never seem to sit down, though there is an exception. I think Seneca County, there is an exception in Ohio. I think it's Seneca. Praise Seneca.
There's one school district in our county that is not enforcing masks on bus.
Very rarely you will have an attorney look at it the way I do in terms of saying, hey, they just can't do this. They're out of bounds and they cannot do it. So there are some counties Ohio is not uniform, and some counties and some lawyers are doing it, but the vast majority of advice that's given to these school boards is mainly coming from the large law firms, okay? The Retzel Andresses, the Jones Day, and they are linked in with this federal government like you wouldn't believe. And they really just do what they're told to do. They read the wording and they say, oh, yeah, that must apply. It doesn't go through a process of, oh, is this a violation of state law, local law, constitutional law? It really doesn't seem to go through that process. They assume it's already been vetted and it's good by the time it gets to them. Mm-hmm. So we need to have, even these big firms, and maybe these lawsuits will help them wake up a little bit. They need to be more skeptical about what they're being fed from the agencies that are, expanding their power almost in an unlimited fashion.
Mm-hmm. What I will say is that there are districts, even within our county, that are opting to go against the grain, right? So I want to do a special call out to Anthony Wayne local school districts in Lucas County and Otsego. They did the right thing. Right? So that's what is this conundrum continues because you have, even within the same county, that critical thinking starts to happen. And the only thing that I can see the differentiator is that when you get a more conservative group on the school board, and they put pressure back to that, they shift their line of thinking. This is just a critical. Would you think that's
they absolutely have to have legal advice to rely on, though? I mean, they can't just. I mean, they really do need an attorney to tell them, look, this is out of bounds. You don't have to do it. And this is why. I mean, at that level, you're not going to be bucking the attorney's advice. I can tell you that right now, because they understand that could create liability. So that feels really risky for them. But, believe me, we have advised some companies, we have advised some governments how to deal with this. It's just very few. I can count them on one hand.
So with that all being said, I got very frustrated because I'm showing you this evidence and you have nothing to combat it with other than this word sue, right?
Yeah.
So I even said to our superintendent and our school board members, who is standing up for our children? Who is, in just exasperation after trying to get dialogue, trying to understand. I think that's been my heart in all of this, is just trying to understand, because it does not make logical sense. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me, I think I forwarded you the link, and I'm sure you've all seen it, that non-compliant movie, Liberty First. I think it's Liberty Society, maybe, non-compliant.
I don't
there's a woman. Have you guys seen the movie? It's like an hour long. It's not a movie. It's like a documentary on, it's an education, a civil rights education, essentially, civil government. What is her name? Chrisanne Hall. She's a military veteran and just outlines exactly that's the problem. We're all looking for someone else to stand up for our children, when really we, the parents, we the people, clearly we're all equipped in some form or another, right? As opportunities present themselves, to be an advocate for our children. And we don't have to know anything, but just ask questions and, dig into the hard stuff. And ultimately, we have the Bill of Rights and the United States Constitution. I see, and I've experienced within our schools, knowing those rights, standing on those rights, invoking them, letting them know I'm the parent, I make these choices. They are leaving my kids alone. Now I say that and something's going to happen this week, but bring it on. I don't know. We'll fight that next battle. But it's unfortunate, honestly, that they aren't looking out for the best interests of our children and educating our children. And I know there's so many good people in our schools, so many great teachers. Like you said, Heather, they have come forward to me as well and have thanked us for standing up and causing friction. So I would just say, don't shy away from that. You don't have to be a jerk and a bully and mean about it, but you can cause friction. It's a good thing.
All right. So we're coming close to the time when Warner needs to leave us all. Is there anything else? Actually, Lisa, did you actually say what is the actual situation with your kids on the bus?
So in the fall, it was actually the first week of school, everything was status quo. Bus drivers did not mention masks to kids. My kids got on the bus fully equipped and prepared for the altercation and just say no thank you. If it was pushed, they were just going to say, I'm not allowed. Please call my mom or dad. Nothing happened the entire first week of school. The second week of school, so that's where they get you. You think everything's fine, right? And then there's either a rogue teacher or a rogue principal or something happens. I'm not behind closed doors. And then all of a sudden there's tyranny happening again. So anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent there. So I have a middle schooler. My middle schooler got on the bus knowing we have just told our kids, you're not allowed to wear a mask. That's our decision. We're your parents. So there's that. And if anybody tells you to, just tell them you're not allowed and call your mom. So she got on the bus, bless her heart, 7th grader, to take the bus to the high school for practice, cross-country practice in the fall. And up until this point had no problems. The bus driver told her to get off the bus until she had a mask on, made her like physically get off the bus. And she was just doing what she was told, essentially. So this happened again, like the next day, I think. My husband called the transportation department because we were getting nowhere with our superintendent and school board. We don't hear anything from them. Thinking like that would be the course of action to take, right? They're the leadership of our schools, but that was met with silence. So reached out to our transportation director, and he was amazing. So that would be a place I would recommend going, is to your transportation department director. He was the most human. It was the most humanity expressed in all of our situations. He was real. He cared. He said, I'm so sorry. That should not have happened. That is not our role. Our role is only to provide masks or ask the child if they have one. I forget exactly the wording, but he talked to her bus driver and got it all straightened out. Her principals, the following day. So then I'm all hyped up, right? Like, is she going to get harassed and denied bus privileges the next day? And she's in 7th grade. She's my baby. But she was prepared for whatever happened. And her principals went outside to make sure she got on the bus without altercation. And so it was great to have their support too. Not that they agreed but they were honoring my rights as a parent and knew that they couldn't deny her transportation. And so from then on, it was fine. Now, when she would go to cross-country meets, or my boys rode the bus for their sporting events, I was always clear. They're probably so annoyed with me, and so we know we got it. But I would always be proactive and just email the coaches, talk to the athletic director, just always make sure everyone was on the same page, that my kids aren't wearing a mask and these are our rights and here's the law. And just making sure everybody's on the same page, just to avoid any confrontation moving forward. I was very persistent.
I think this is a really important lesson, which I think we all learn eventually anyway, is just, I noticed in the comments, somebody said their transportation director was not helpful. But the fact of the matter is the sheer persistence of a person.
Mm-hmm.
You will find human beings out there.
Yes, and I'm not saying it will be your transportation department director,
it
but
might be a principal or somebody may be there. I mean, and I think that all of ours, I think persistence is, how we connect, and then these serendipitous things happen to us just because we put ourselves out there. Mm-hmm. Things come to us. You just, look, it's true in my life. It's true in what we're doing. I mean, we start this pathway of litigation, and next thing you know, we have different people who are helping and providing information, and we meet nice people like Catherine Hewig and Heather Mullins and Lisa Guthrie. I mean, it just and then that also feeds emotionally, makes us all feel better. I mean, we are definitely got a tribe, and that it's a very, very strong group of people. And
yeah, and you bring up a great point. No one admitted. I was trying to get them to get on my page, and they weren't. They were playing their game, and I, at some point, meeting them toe to toe every step of the way, I realized I'm not going to get them to agree with me. Not that that was my point in all of it, but they weren't providing me with anything of the opposite either, contradicting anything I said, or any proof I was showing them. So eventually I just had to take a bold stand and say, this is what we're doing. And I mean, I'm not saying that's going to work in every situation. And another point I want to say too, a state education leader within our state of Ohio has been an advocate for us. And she made it very clear early on. She said, we are playing chess. We are not playing checkers. And to have that mindset as well, and not saying you're going to, be successful in every endeavor you take on with all of these issues in our schools. But the ones that and the ones where you are, the hill you're willing to battle, I think they're very noble and worthy causes. And even if you fail or you take a step backwards, don't give up and keep collaborating and building connections and learning from each other what does work and the language to use. And yeah.
Absolutely. The failure thing is something I know well. I have failed myself to success many times in life. But I mean, that's exactly what we do in the law. We test and we fail at cases and we figure what we have to do. So, if the courts won't do this, then we're going to go over here and do that. I'm trying to help work on a constitutional amendment, right now, so that we have an even stronger basis to go to court. But, so if you're blocked over here, there's always, if the door is shut, the window can be opened sometimes. That escape room you were talking about.
It's the escape room, I'm telling you.
That is I love the healthy attitude about failure, because that is the reality. Even in a failed case, let's say we lose a lower court case. Boy, that just means I get to appeal it. And if I get to appeal it, then, that opinion could have even more power and force going forward. So, yeah. I mean, I don't, I view it in that sense. So I love that you have that sense, Lisa. And, we all just have to do what we can. That's all we can do. We're going to win, we're going to lose. But as long as we're hanging together, we're going to be good. And I do have to go, Catherine. I'm sorry.
One thing I wanted to finish with, since
okay, go ahead.
Because again, you haven't been selling yourself as much as you've affected things. The updates since I think the last time you were on here, in terms of mask mandates in the school, we've had the city of Avon Lake. They've removed their mask mandate, and as of Friday, Hudson is also free. They are effective immediately. The mask mandates are gone. It's now optional at Hudson. And I think that actually probably did have something to do with you as well. So you can credit, I think.
Like I said, it's always a basket of reasons. One of the things we do need to do, though, kind of moving forward, we need to fund nonprofits like Ohio Stands Up so that they've got a pot of money ready to go. Even if this all goes away, if Ohio Stands Up can be funded and we know, look, if we've got to move quickly on a few cases, bang, it's there. They have a board that oversees the money. They can, and I think that's a very helpful structure in terms of building our civic antibodies moving forward, to have a not-for-profit ready to go with funding so that things can gear up very fast. But
yeah, that's actually, and that's a good point. I almost forgot that as well, that there will be more events like the one we were both at last week, or
you
actually
don't have to wait for an event either, Catherine. People can donate to Ohio State.
we can do that too.
Anytime.
But to let people know, there will be one in Cincinnati April 9th, and there will be one in Westerville on June 11th, or June 11th.
And Cincinnati's going to have that, Dr. Dr.
Artist.
That might be interesting to be at. And then what I forget who's going to be at Westerville.
I don't know.
Stephen Perry, was Stephen Perry going to be there?
I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
I know nothing. I'm just the person who sits here with the computer.
Okay.
So
when I told them I'd be at any event they'd have anywhere in the state, so I'll be at both of them. People are going to get tired of hearing from me.
No, we are very happy you are here. So I think we've covered everything tonight. Is there anything else?
I do want to say one more thing. I want to come full circle. Just this week, the bus driver that denied Megan entry to the bus reached out to me, found me on Facebook, sent me a private message, and this has been heavy on her. She's been carrying this burden with her since September, and she just wanted to apologize. And I thought, out of nowhere, I told her, she said, "Are you the parent who was upset with the bus driver?" And I said, "Well, I wasn't upset with the bus driver." "Well, maybe in the minute, yeah. But overall, it's just the policy in general. It was not personal." And we had a great conversation. It's just amazing how God works. And I was least expecting, I hadn't thought of her. And then she reached out and wanted to apologize and get it off her chest. So
what a conversation tonight, you guys. Wow. There's so many lessons in here. This is a great one, Catherine. These two are great.
Definitely. All of you. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you and those watching. And hopefully you'll find the information useful. I'll figure out a place I can put that document that Lisa has and get those links available for people to look at and try to figure out what to do. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.